Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Hero Life Show. Really excited to welcome a good friend and a great human being, Dr. Daniel Golshevsky, Dr. Golly, who is right now in his office in Cabrini Hospital in Melbourne. Good to see you, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Really good to join together, and firstly, just love what you're doing right now with the sleep school that you've created under drgolly.com. Tell us a little bit about how that came about, the work that you've been doing in obstetrician and just general medicine. Love to hear about your journey and then how it evolved to sharing your skills in the sleep world.
All right. Well, how long do you have? Okay.
All
So
day for you, mate.
I had no intention of building this ever. I just went into medicine because I loved it, went into pediatrics because day one of pediatrics when I was a medical student, I fell in love with it. And then when I started working and realized that I didn't want to do anything else. And then within pediatrics, I never knew what I wanted to do. And then found myself on a path towards becoming a pediatric cardiologist. So really, really loved the heart, everything about the heart. Um, and it was at that time when I was training to become a pediatric cardiologist that I had my first child. I had my daughter Milla, who's now 8.5. And that experience was transformative to say the least, in the best ways and in the hardest ways as well. And it was at that moment that I got to experience the negative. A lot of people say that the hardest thing that they've had to go through is the best thing that they ever went through. So for me, it was one of the hardest challenges that I've ever had to face, which I can go into later, the reasons. But she was a very unsettled baby, really, really unsettled newborn, bad colic. And the process of managing her, managing me, meant that, cut a long story short, I decided not to do cardiology in the end, and I went into general pediatrics with a specific focus on newborns and specifically unsettled newborns. And the rest is history. 10, 15 years later, after studying pediatrics, I now work in it full time and wanted to really get a reach beyond just the one-on-one interaction that I have in my room, and hence the reason for starting the program.
Yeah, amazing. And well, let's unpack the challenges of being a first-time father. And obviously, you're building a professional career and a professional life simultaneously. So, how was it to navigate the challenges of becoming a father and then connecting, obviously, with your wife at the time, whilst building your career?
It's almost, it's mean, the world tends to throw, the hardest part of your professional life when you're trying to build a foundation upon which to grow. At the same time, they throw a mortgage at you when you're earning the least amount of money, and then they throw in kids as well. I mean, these are all beautiful things, and I don't regret any of them for a second, but they all seem to hit at once. You could almost manage them beautifully if they were a few years apart. But it was an enormous, enormous challenge for me, and I think everyone has a potential to struggle, but me personally, I felt like I had to do it perfectly because I was a paediatrician. I was meant to know everything about babies. I was meant to know everything about how to handle them and change them and help them get fed and burped and settled. And I was the person that all of my friends and family were contacting for advice, but then I was stuck not knowing the answers with my own child, and not being able to fix it. And I think I'm generalizing here, of course, but for me, and I reckon a lot of dads are the same, just that inability to fix a problem, found that very, very frustrating, for want of a better term. And the adjustment was enormous. It was the biggest adjustment I've ever had to make in my life. And it was something that I really, really struggled with. And I'm still struggling every day with, because having children presents new challenges every single day, because one day it's about getting them to sleep and changing nappies, and the next day it's about their social life or which school they go to, or which sport they want to play, or helping them navigate through a particular life problem. So the problems change in their appearance, but they never disappear entirely. And I think that I'm growing as an individual, growing as a dad every single day. And I've got my kids to thank. I've got my wife to thank, because she's without question a shining light for me, an enormous amount of guidance. And then I also look back on my parents, grandparents, my friends as well, my parents-in-law, just for a lot of guidance to make me introspect and reflect and think about how I want to parent.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I mean, you know, having the experience of being a professional and needing to have all the answers, or seemingly needing to have all the answers, where did you go to share your challenges? Because I imagine it would be quite challenging to do that with, you know, the role that you play within, as you said, your friendship circle and the wider community. Did you reach out for support, or how did you, you know, navigate those challenges?
I was stupid. I was an idiot. I went nowhere. I thought that was what you had to do. I was really, really foolish initially. And so, you know, when you're a doctor and you have children, you can do it one of two ways. You can either assume that your child has every problem you've ever read about or seen about or heard about, which is how I started. And I was just in a constant state of high stress, high cortisol, fear. I was always checking her. I was always examining her. I was always talking about things that I was seeing and whether or not this was a symptom, asking colleagues at work, is this bad? Is that okay? And at about the 6-month mark, I realized that I can't do this for much longer. I was beyond breaking point, and I was not enjoying the process about being a dad. This thing that was meant to be, that I believe is one of the greatest things you can experience as a human, one of the core meanings of life, in my opinion. And I was hating it. I was really not enjoying the process at all. And then I had somewhat of a slow epiphany and realized that the way I'm doing it is wrong. I turned it around 180 degrees and I decided my child's got nothing wrong with her. And from that moment, I've carried that ongoing. So I've got 3 beautiful kids now, and I just have that same approach. My child's got nothing wrong. My child's normal. My child's healthy until proven otherwise. I've since been thrown another challenge with my youngest, who had to have some pretty major head surgery when she was 1 year of age. So it's not that I have had this blessed pathway where, you know, there've been no problems, but it was a case of assuming the best as opposed to assuming the worst. And that made a very, very, very big difference, a shift in my mentality and my approach. And I really got to enjoy it, because right now my kids have got to, you know, they've got to bring me a missing limb to get my attention. I don't respond to little knocks and paper cuts and things like that.
I love that though, because I think it's really relatable, the idea that something's wrong, and always looking at what could be wrong and what's not working. That might be related to family or just life in general. So to hear it from your mouth, I feel like will soothe a lot of people, especially those that are, you know, navigating a newborn situation.
Yeah, and so, a lot of that has transferred into my professional work as well. So every single day I'll examine a newborn baby, and every now and then you find something that's not right. And that not right can be something significant, or it can be something really minor. And there've been many, many times when I've explained to a parent that the child's got, you know, it might be, I don't know, one ear that's folded a little bit awkwardly. And sometimes you see the parents get really distressed by that. And I completely understand that. But I remind them that, you know, if the mother feels guilty or the father feels guilty, I just remind them that they also made a good ear on the other side, and they made 2 good eyeballs, and that nose is perfect. And I go on and mention the other 99% of the body that's phenomenal inside and out. And they get the message that, yeah, in the whole scheme of things, a folded ear is no big deal, because often people look at the 1% that's not right and they forget the fact that, oh my God, there is so much baby here. You've got no idea how incredible it is what you've made. And if you shift their focus to it, I think it really helps. But I had to have that shift myself first before I could then preach what I was able to practice.
And was there anything else that you'd like to share about the shift that took place in just, looking at your child and just seeing absolute perfection, regardless of what's going on? What were the other shifts that took place for you? Because I imagine the, now spending a lot of time speaking with other parents, being settled within yourself allows you to just speak so confidently from your experience. So any other shifts that took place for you?
The biggest shift beyond the one that happened internally in terms of my enjoyment of the process was the fact that it changed my practice. There's no question that being a dad has had a major, major impact on my life, but on my work as well. And a lot of the time when parents ask me a curly question, I'll give two answers and I'll say, well, here's my answer as a paediatrician, facts, science, evidence, but then here's my answer as a dad, because I don't like to give advice that I wouldn't be able to take myself. So when the textbooks tell you ignore that, it'll go away. I know that if someone told me to ignore that behavior in my child, I wouldn't be able to. And so I won't give that advice as a paediatrician father.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. And so, I mean, let's go into what it's like now to spend a lot of time with parents, especially newborns. What comes up there pre the birth, during the labor process, and post. I love talking about the fourth trimester, because baby's now with us. Lots of new experiences are being had, and I'm sure they're coming to you for more and more support. How do you like to approach, supporting people who are just experiencing the new magic of being a parent?
Great question. I think lots of paediatricians do it in different ways. And for me, we do, for example, once people go home, I do offer a 6-week check in this very room. So someone will come in fact, in a couple of hours, there'll be plenty of babies coming in, and I'll do a 6-week check. And the sort of the medical side of things can be finished in 5 minutes. You can identify issues, remedy them, put something in place, or problems already solved. And then you could almost say, okay, all finished, you can go now. But that's kind of where I start. And then I shift to the more practical, emotional side of things. And so that's where I have a lot of focus on sleep and routines, and trying to protect the mum, and using the dad as the secret weapon, and really trying to get the parents to enjoy the process and enjoy the period. Because so many parents say to me, we've just got to get through it. Just got to get through the newborn phase. Just got to get through the sleep regression. Got to get through it. Got to survive. And I really hate that, because you wake up one day and you realize your kids are 10 and you've just been getting through it. Like it's an unfortunate way. It's an unfortunate way to exist when there's so much to enjoy. I know it sounds very cliche, like I'm reading a Hollywood script. There's so much to enjoy along the path. Yeah. And if I'm able to get a parent to sleep better overnight, my big focus is on sleep. I think if I can get a parent to sleep better overnight, it gives them a little bit of fuel, a little bit of energy to sort of stop and smell the roses and take it all in and really enjoy the process, as opposed to just surviving it.
And let's talk about the secret weapon being the partner or the father, whatever it may be. What are some of the tactics that you like to offer? Because I think, sometimes I know in my experience, like I love to be enlightened by those who have got great experience and wisdom, especially in regards to sleep and the sleep of a newborn. So reaching out for support was crucial, just to know that I don't have to sit there tapping, and I don't have to wake up and go to my child just because they've cried for 30 seconds. I can give some time and space. But what are some of the tactics that people would love to know from, the sleep doctor himself?
I guess it's all born out of the fact that a lot of dads complain to me that they feel helpless. So let's talk about, for example, I think it's easier when you think about a case. Talk about a nuclear family, a mum, a dad, let's call them first-time parents, and mum's breastfeeding. Babies, say 3 weeks old or 1 month old. That dad will very often say to me that they just feel helpless. Like they can't do anything. They really want to help. They've got a beautiful approach to being a dad. They want to be involved. They want to be hands-on. But I don't have breasts. I can't breastfeed. So I can't do anything. And I'm seeing my wife struggle. The baby's unsettled. I feel helpless and they're not enjoying the process. I think what those dads don't realize is that they are the key to the process. Instead of being helpless, they are literally the most important cog in that process. And the reason why is because my focus is the baby. There's no question. I'm a paediatrician. That's my number one focus. But the mum is my conduit, because if I can protect that breastfeeding mum, if I can ensure that she's sleeping well, that she's adapting well, she's recovering from pregnancy and from delivery, and she's getting good enough rest, then I know that that baby will be protected. And how do I protect that mum? I work with the dad. And so often babies will cry not because of hunger. So what do you need breasts for? You just need to know why your baby's crying. You need to be able to employ some settling techniques, remove the hurdles, remove the reason for them crying in the first place. And all of a sudden the baby's settled and the mum's still fast asleep in her bed. So the dad is very much the secret weapon, so much so that, I work with a lot of fly-in, fly-out dads who are sometimes not home for weeks at a time. I'll tell those mums to put on one of dad's jumpers or one of dad's hoodies just to mask her smell of breast milk, to make the baby think in this dark room at 2 a.m, oh, dad's come. I know dad's got no breast milk, so I'm not going to try and feed. I'll just get burped, I'll have a nappy change, I'll get swaddled and I'll go straight back to sleep. And it happens, it really works. So when I say that dad's a secret weapon, it's not just buzzwords. It absolutely works, because you've got to understand babies are unbelievable communicators. It's adults who kind of muddy the waters of communication with nuance and sarcasm and all of the body language. But babies are pure. They're like dogs, they're like animals. They can smell it, right? So if you hold a baby and you send them a message, whether it's I'm totally in control, I'm confident, or it's I'm not feeding you because I can't, that baby will imbibe that feeling. They'll drink all of that up, just like they drink up milk, and then they'll respond accordingly. So it's so much about empowering parents to interpret their babies better, and really empowering dads to make them feel like they have an enormous role to play. And the beautiful thing is that it exists in a really positive cycle. So if that dad puts in more effort in the child settling and the child rearing, the mother benefits, the baby benefits, but the dad benefits because the mum and baby benefits. So every minute that you put in, I know you're sleep deprived, I know you've got pressure at work, believe me, I'm there as well. You're not talking to someone who hasn't been through it or currently going through it. And I can talk about how I manage my own work in it afterwards, but I literally know what you're going through. I was there like a couple of years ago, and it's absolutely true that the more you put in, the more you get out. It's like a self-recharging battery. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's really important for everyone to hear who's navigating a first child, a newborn, who's maybe in the cave, as people like to say, that there are great solutions in place, and it's just it's teaming together. That's what I'm hearing from you.
It's teamwork, exactly right. It's not, a lot of parents approach it as separate, but it's very, very much a team. And I really think that we're enjoying, probably too late and probably too little, but there's a bit of a society shift at the moment that's understanding the value of paternity in this process. So paternity leave is, when I had my first child, I got 4 nights. I got 4 days off work and I was on night shifts. And my child was 5 days old. I went back to night shift in an emergency department. It was hardly, a generous paternity package, but I won't go into that. But now I'm hearing of dads who are getting, months and months fully paid paternity leave. They're able to take it at any stage in the first year of their child's life. It's absolutely wonderful. And when you've got that, that financial pressure taken off and you've got time, it really can be a joint mission, and you both just get to enjoy it. It's fantastic. I just want to see more and more of that.
Well, it's definitely heading in that direction. I think the importance of a newborn having both parents available for such an important duration of their life.
Yeah,
It just makes the most sense to, support these young people to be the great people they're going to be. And it starts from day one.
that's right. And available is the key word. So we talk about available. It's about not just being physically available, emotionally available. And
Mm.
that's what the child needs from day dot. It's the parent who's there and who is well slept. So they're not just there physically, they're there emotionally as well, which is very hard when you are sleep deprived.
Mm. Yeah, that's really important to hear. So let's talk then again about your experience. You've got three children now. Miller's now what, 8.5, was it?
Yep.
So
Tom is 6 and P is 4.
right. So how has your parenting experience changed? You mentioned you're hands off in so many regards because you love empowering them. Talk to me about how things have changed in your parenting world, then also in the relationship with your wife, and then of course navigating many businesses and a career doing what you're doing.
It's a juggle, and I by no means do I have the answers. I feel like I'm always doing it wrong. I feel like I'm not doing enough, and I think that's a positive thing. I'm not too hard on myself about it, but it just means that I'm always trying to do better. I'm always trying to do more, as part of my work, but as also part of my life. I'm always reading articles, reading papers. I'm talking to psychologists and occupational therapists. I'm always trying to upskill professionally, which I then take home as well.
Mm.
Um, I also learn from teachers. I think teachers at schools, kindergartens are an incredible resource. So I'm always picking their brains and taking their advice. I work very closely with schools all the time. Um, for me, it's hard because I've got a very taxing job, and it's all hours. So very often, I could be in the middle of bathing the kids or dinner or footy game on a Sunday, and then all of a sudden my phone rings and I've got to leave. And it puts a big toll on the kids, but it puts an enormous toll on my wife. So I'm exceptionally lucky from that point of view that I've got a very understanding wife and a wife who's incredibly intuitive, incredibly connected to her children, and gives them so much of herself, which she's an enabler. She completely enables me to then pursue work, pursue other interests, and when I'm not on call, I try to give her as much in return as possible. When I have work that is more flexible, I try to manipulate that somewhat. So, for example, if I ever had a lot of administrative things to catch up on, I would often leave work early to try to come home and be with the kids around dinner, take care of bathing and bedding. Once the kids are asleep, I'll go back to work. So if I've still got 2 hours of work to do, I'd rather do it after hours when the kids are not awake. Yes, it involves another drive. Yes, it's cold and dark and I want to be in my bed or, be doing something else. But it just gives me those little windows, so that I'm not just a weekend dad, because I know that some weekends I'm on call and I want to try to be present as much as possible. I am well aware that my job often prevents me from doing that. And as a result, I try to manipulate, for want of a better term, as much as possible and make myself available at times when they're available as well.
Mm. Sounds like your wife is amazing and an
Yes.
enabler, as you mentioned. Talk to us a little bit about communicating, the challenges of like just a very unpredictable, wild lifestyle when it comes to work. I'm sure conversations are needing to be had quite regularly when you have three young kids. A lot of practical things happen. How do you approach just having that conversation in an open and loving way? How does that usually look for you?
My wife reminds me in the most incredible way that if you're not in peak physical and emotional condition, you are useless to everyone else. So, the first thing that we're taught in medicine is that you've got to look after yourself, because if you're not safe, if you're injured or killed, you are of no use to anyone. Dr. ABC, the D stands for danger. you're on an aeroplane, the oxygen mask comes down, you've got to put it on yourself before you put it on your kids. We're taught these things all the time, but I'm not very good at it. And I will often put my patients first, my on-call commitments first, and then I'll put, I'll have my family, everything vying for my priority, and then me, a very, 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 very distant 10th, if that. And what always seems to go out the window is my exercise, my diet, whatever I might need to do, whether it's mindfulness, meditation, having a break, having a holiday. I tend to just put those things on the back burner. They're always the first things to go. And my wife is incredible at reminding me that that's bloody stupid.
Straight to it. I love it.
And sometimes I need to be snapped back into line. So those conversations are not easy. And even more, another reason why I'm so grateful and I respect her so much, because sometimes when I'm in the middle of something, which is really intense and it's important, and, sometimes it's life or death, I have to be snapped back into line. And sometimes you've got to scream at me to make me realize that what I'm doing is not sustainable. And very often, we're talking more and more about it in medical circles, and it's getting a little bit of airtime about burnout in medicine. No surprises there. We just keep on going. We don't stop. We don't think about ourselves. I mean, there are plenty of overweight, overworked doctors out there, and you sort of think, mate, you're not practicing what you preach. For me, I just need to be reminded every now and then. And, even this conversation with you right now is a reminder that I haven't gone for a run in probably 2 months, and I reckon I'll go this afternoon.
Amazing. If that can be the catalyst, or if this conversation can be a catalyst for some form of self-care, I think that's powerful. And so let's talk about self-care. I mean, like, to be the best dad you can be, to be the best practitioner you can be, what do you feel is essential for your life on a day-to-day basis? Now, as you mentioned, it might not happen every day, but what would be like the ideal day for you to be able to contribute to everyone, but also give to yourself?
Sleep, sleep, sleep. That's number one. No question, it's sleep. I mean, if you don't sleep, good luck, fixing everything with exercise and nutrition. So I try as much as possible to protect my sleep. I try not to have excess screen time before I close my eyes. And I try to set as many things in motion before going to bed. For my patients who might be in hospital at the time, I try to have everything organized to minimize the number of overnight phone calls that I would get. Look, it happens sometimes and I get disrupted. And when that does happen, I try to then protect the next night's sleep if I can. Not always possible, but that is always my priority. And then again, I keep on harking back to my wife. She keeps my food intake incredibly clean and incredibly nutritious and organic. And she helps me focus on that in the most amazing way. I cannot quite put my gratitude into words for what she does from that point of view. It's funny, people think that I'm the smart one in that relationship because I'm the doctor. It's so the other way around. We in Western medicine, we deal with illness, whereas she's far more intelligent when it comes to illness prevention, which is a much smarter way to be. So, every day I'll be given a cup of something and told, drink it. And what is that? Oh, it's propolis extract and it's echinacea root. And she's Moroccan background, so she's got a lot of this sort of in her bones. She knows stuff. She was talking about turmeric before anyone was talking about turmeric lattes and all of that. She's so miles ahead of the curve, and I learn so much from her all the time. So she really protects me from that point of view, and our children as well. I mean, which 4-year-old is happily drinking propolis extract? It tastes disgusting. I can barely swallow it. My 4-year-old's shotting it, no problem. And then beyond that, it's about exercise. So for me, I try to do as much as I can whenever I can, but I go AWOL for sometimes weeks at a time, and then I've got to I've got to kick back into it. So I try and you know, do things at home. It's difficult for me to commit to regular times because I do get called away so often. So that's frustrating for me. It's frustrating if I wanted to join a class or work with a trainer or meet a mate for a run. So it can be limited like that, but I try as much as I can.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, we've spoken about your wife many times, and I just want to kind of conclude with just a question around how do you give to her specifically? You know, she is probably the primary caregiver at the moment to the 3 kids, nourishing them.
She's got 4 kids because I'm a big kid.
So how do you then give back to her so she has what she needs? Because teamwork means that we're all giving and receiving in all different ways. And we've spoken a lot about kids, and we've spoken a lot about dads. I'd love to hear just what it's like to contribute to her and her own well-being as well.
Yeah, I think it begins with putting yourself in someone else's shoes. I think that's a very, very powerful thing, and not just a cliche. So as much as possible, I try to physically put myself into her shoes, because I think a lot of the time I come home from work, I'm exhausted, I'm drained. It might have been a tough day. But she's also had her challenges. And just because they're not the same doesn't mean they're any less exhausting or tiring or challenging. And sometimes I might be tired physically, but she might be tired emotionally. I think that's much harder than physical tired, because you can fix physical tired, you know, with one good sleep, but emotional tired, it's hard. So as much as possible, I try to get a good, healthy dose of perspective. So I understand what she does and how much she does and how much she carries and what it is that she manages throughout the day. And then what that does is it gives me an incredible depth of appreciation for what she does. And then practically what I do, anything I can, whenever I can. So you know, if I'm home, I'm not on call, I'm around, I'll just be saying, go for a walk, go out with your family, go with your friends. If she says, can I, the answer is yes before she's finished the sentence. So if I can facilitate, it doesn't matter what I've got to do, doesn't matter how tired I am, I will always say yes. I'll worry about the logistics later. And, you know, I'm in a beautiful community. I'm very lucky to have parents and parents-in-law who live nearby. I've got a brother-in-law, a sister-in-law, 2 brothers. I've got a huge community. We all live in communities, and if you lean on them, they can lean on you, and that just enables me to prioritize my wife, because again, we talked about that circle, it comes back. So if I can give that to her, yes, I might be working double time, exhausted from work, then looking after 3 kids and a dog and trying to juggle everything and everyone's needs and everything. But the truth is that she gets her batteries recharged. I'm the one who benefits.
Yeah.
So it's like a self-fulfilling, like a self-charging battery. I might have to work hard, but that's okay, because I'm the one who reaps the benefits from it.
That is just so beautiful. I feel like this is a love letter to Elite. And it's just magnificent and beautiful. And I think a lot of people can relate to your experiences and some of the ways that you shared how you give and receive. I think that will spark a lot of inspiration in a lot of people and a lot of relationships. So thank you for sharing all that.
My pleasure.
So Dr. Golly, Dr. Daniel Golly, I'm so excited that we had this time together and for what's to come for you with your sleep school and the program there and all the great work that you do. Where can people find you? How can people find out a little bit about what you do?
So you can jump onto drgolly.com, drgolly.com. There's plenty of information out there. I'm also always regularly putting things up on Instagram too. Just interesting factoids and funny things and pictures of gorgeous babies all the time that we send home from work. So you can find me there, and yeah, I'd love to give your listeners a promo code. So I'll send that to you when we're finished.
Brilliant. Yeah, we'll put everything in the show notes so you can have access to that. Hope you enjoy this episode with Dr. Daniel Golly. Thank you for your time, mate. Look forward to catching up soon.
Pleasure. Thank you, mate.
Bye, mate.